Hey everyone, and welcome back to Unorthodox Cricket. Now, last night saw the departure of South Africa from the Cricket World Cup 2019, and what a shame. I can't imagine being a South African fan. So much disappointment. What do you say? It seems to be every World Cup, things just don't seem to go right. They've always got the players and the potential, and they've just never really lived up to it. So I really feel for all you South African fans out there. It's tough times. I don't really know what to say about that. Last night they played Pakistan. Pakistan set 308. Another classy knock from Babar Azam, and then Haris Sohail really put the cherry on the top there at the end. And in return, South Africa could only come up with 259. Quinton de Kock and Faf sort of looked like they might have it there together, but as soon as they got out, things sort of fell apart. There were a few scores in the middle, 20s and 30s, but nothing enough to get them over the line. Even if they had managed to win last night, it was still going to be a really tough road to the semis. Would rely on other teams' results and things like that, but just another disappointing result for South African cricket. Now what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to preview a match that I'm really excited for, and that's the Australia and England game coming up in 2 days' time. So if we just start by taking a look at what I think England are going to roll out for the Australia game. Vince and Bairstow at the top, Root at 3, Morgan 4, Stokes 5, Buttler, Ali, Woakes, Rashid, Archer and Wood. I can't see them bring in either Curran, Plunkett or Dawson, just because this squad's been going so well so far. Now looking at the top of the order, James Vince, I mean, he's a good player and he's performed well at the domestic level. Hasn't shown that at international stage yet, but I don't think he's going to be a player that's going to devastate Australia. Sure, he could get a 50 odd or something like that, but I don't think it's going to be rapid fire or change the context of the game. Now Johnny Bairstow, he's had a pretty solid tournament. He's had a 90 and 50 odd, but I think there's a little bit more from there to come. We've seen over the past year how devastating he has been. For me, it'd almost be the opener I'd pick out of any team. There's just something about him, and he's got that potential to really go big, and I think Australia could be that game. Joe Root, Mr. Reliable again. He just scores runs for fun, really. Started off the tournament with a big 100, and he hasn't really slowed down there. The only problem there is if Australia bat first and put on a huge total, we know that Root doesn't quite have that power game, but he still has the ability to strike it well over 100, so that'll be interesting in a big run chase. Captain Owen Morgan, we saw the other night, that 148 off 71 balls, I think it was. That was just devastating. 17 sixes in there, and that was some of the cleanest hitting you'll see. To strike the ball that cleanly over such a long period is a seriously impressive effort. Moving on down, Ben Stokes, he's had a couple of scores this tournament. I think there's still more for us to see with him with the bat. With the ball, surprisingly, he's been England's most economical bowler. May not have had the wickets, but typically he's a bowler who goes for a few more, so keeping his economy down is pretty good. Buttler, we've already seen what he can do. That devastating 100, he's that kind of guy who's either going to miss out or he's going to punish you. He comes in typically at the death and just looks to tee off. So he's a man that you really want to see the back of as quickly as you can. Moeen Ali, what do you say about him? He is one of those guys who is going to hit or he's going to miss. And typically if he hits, he'll hit with bat and ball. And if he misses, he'll fail with both. His tournament's been a bit so-so. He made a couple of errors with the bat that may have cost England a game or two. But he's just one of those X-factor players, and he does love to step up against Australia, so watch out for him. Chris Woakes, pretty reliable guy. Doesn't do a lot with the ball, but he's so consistent, puts it on the spot, and then you've got the added benefit of his batting at 8, is probably one of the strongest in the tournament. Adil Rashid probably hasn't had the tournament that he's wanted, but as we've seen with most of the spinners, their economies have been a little bit higher, as well as the averages. So it has been a seamers World Cup, but he is a man who can perform, and he's also another great man to have with the bat at number 9. Jofra Archer, one of the bowlers of the tournament so far. Just got incredible strike power, runs in, hits 150 clicks, does a little bit with it, and he's really been a really good find for this English team. And then lastly, Mark Wood, a guy coming into the tournament I wasn't particularly sold on. I didn't think he was a great bowler, but he's proved me wrong. He's had a really effective World Cup. Him again running in at 150k. Good bouncer on him, and he's a wicket taker. He's a real wicket taking option. But if he does get it wrong against Australia, they will punish him. And as I said before, I can't see Curran, Plunkett or Dawson getting a run just with how this whole English team's operating at the moment. Now as we take a look at the Australian team, I can't see them making any changes. So Warner and Finch at the top, Khawaja 3, Smith 4, Maxwell 5, Stoinis, Carey, Colton Isle, Cummins, Stark and Zampa. Now they've had a pretty good tournament, so can't see any changes there. The other players they could bring in Behrendorff, Shaun Marsh or Kane Richardson. The only sort of one I can see slipping out there would be Colton Isle perhaps. Hasn't been a wicket taker with the ball, but he did score that 90, so he holds a bat a bit better than anyone else on that list, so I think he'll hold his position. Now looking at the top, this is Australia's power here, Warner and Finch. They've just been piling on the runs. They're both in the top run scorer spot. Been quite reserved from David Warner, which has been interesting, and the aggressor's been Finch. But it's worked really well, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes against the English attack. Now for me, this whole Khawaja Smith thing, 3 and 4, has been a real... They just haven't figured it out. For me, I want Smith at 3. I want him facing as many balls as possible. I know that Khawaja scored a good 89 the other day, but for me, you want Smith in there regardless of the situation. I mean, unless you're coming into the final 15 when you're promoting the guys like Maxwell, but then it also leaves Khawaja in no man's land. And that's particularly where I think the Australian lineup is a bit weak, is with their power game. As we look down, Smith, he's had a quiet World Cup. He hasn't had that many opportunities, but when he has, he's scored runs. Maxwell's threatened to score some big runs, and that England could be his game. He's also bowled reasonably well. For me, Stoinis, I don't know what you guys think about him, but for me, he is one of the most overrated players in the tournament. I don't rate him as a batsman, and I don't rate him as a bowler. He's been more effective with the ball in this World Cup than he has with the bat. But beside that one innings he hit against New Zealand, he's really done nothing in his international career to get him the accreditation that he's got. But I'd be interested to know what you guys think about Stoinis as a player. Let me know in the comments. Alex Carey for me. I didn't know a lot about him going into the World Cup, but he's really impressed me with his batsmanship. And it's really impressive because he's got guys like Matthew Wade and Hanscom who are also fighting for that position. So he's done well to hold that, and I think he'll hold his position. But Matthew Wade is there over there on the A tournament, and he's just scored 2 big hundreds. So any injury problems, I'm sure Wade won't be far away. Colton Isle, he's a bit of a there player. Not great with the bat. He scored that 90, which was pretty good, but outside of that, I can't see him scoring runs. And he's handy with the ball, but you wouldn't fear him as a batsman. Pat Cummins, so good, line and length, Mr. Consistent, and then Mitchell Stark, who's going to come in, rattle poles, and really take those wickets. And then Adam Zampa, he's struggled like all the other spinners throughout this tournament. I think Nathan Lyon might also be in their squad, so he could be an option, but I can't see them making too many changes. Now, just looking at those two teams, for me, England are a bit more well-rounded. They've got power at the top, which carries all the way down to the lower order, through your Stokes, Butler and Moeen Ali. For me, Australia hold too much of their power at the top through Finch and Warner, and if they don't get off to a good start, they don't have a lot of hitters down the order. They've got Maxwell, and some people consider Stoinis a hitter, but for me, personally, I don't. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look through individual matchups which I think could really define this game. So for me, one of the key matchups here is Finch and Warner versus Archer and Wood with the new ball. Finch and Warner, two of the top run scorers for the tournament, versus Archer and Wood, two of the top wicket takers. This is an absolutely huge matchup. As we've seen with the Finch-Warner combo, Warner's been tended to be more sedate at the top, with Finch taking all the risks, and that seemed to work quite well. Archer and Wood, so destructive, both wicket takers, both love to bowl short and both love to bowl quick. Now with Finch and Warner, they both love a pull shot, so don't be surprised to see Archer and Wood test them, set a couple traps and see how that goes. Now if Archer and Wood can strike at the top and remove Finch and Warner, that really puts the pressure on Steve Smith and Khawaja, not only to rebuild the innings, but to maintain a good run rate. There's no real problem for Smith. Khawaja can get a little bit stuck early and then kick on a bit later, but then that also puts a heap of pressure on Maxwell to close out the innings, and if he can't, then that could leave them with a mid-250s, low 300s target, as opposed to a 350, 370, which could be necessary to win the game. Now, as I sort of mentioned there with Archer and Wood versus Finch and Warner, I think this game could be won and lost depending on which team does better in those first 15 overs. Now, on this English side, that would mean Bairstow, Root and Morgan versus Stark and Cummins. I think if James Vince scores any runs, it's a bit of a bonus for England. Really unfortunate they lost Jason Roy early in the tournament as he was looking really good. But this game will be decided up front. If Bairstow, Root and Morgan can get through the first 15 and get through Stark and Cummins and really set the platform for Buttler, Stokes and Ali to close it out, they're going to be really difficult to beat. However, if Stark and Cummins can knock over those top 3 or 4, get Stokes, Buttler in early, that sort of gives them a chance to get through them and leave England a little bit vulnerable towards the death. As we've seen over the last year or so, Bairstow's so strong and he's continued that form into this tournament, as has Joe Root and Morgan, that devastating ton the other day. So if those guys can get through the new ball and get past Stark and Cummins, the rest of that Australian bowling attack isn't particularly strong, so it'll set it up for themselves and then those closers. Now I think if both teams can sort of get through that first 15 overs fairly unscathed, it's going to set up for an exciting game. However, if those the Starks, Cummins, Archers and Woods pick up some wickets, it could be a low score thriller, depending if that happens on both sides of the coin. But as I've sort of said, I think this game will be decided up top with that new nut, either Joffa Archer and Wood or Cummins and Stark. That's such a key battle. If either team can get through 15 overs unscathed, it's going to set up for a great game, hopefully really high scoring. On the other hand, if there are a couple wickets either side in the 15 overs, it might be a low scoring thriller. But for me, my money is on England. I just think they've got a little bit more depth, home conditions, and they're in great form. Let me know what you guys sort of think of these key matchups in the comments. If I've sort of missed any out, if there's any other key matchups you guys think might be key, let me know who you guys think is going to come away with the result. And as always, I'm trying to get better at this, so anything I can do to improve, anything you might want to see in future, let me know. But yeah, I'm super excited for this game. I hope you guys are, and we'll talk after that. So enjoy the Cricket World Cup and enjoy tonight's game.